Hello everyone, this is Dino Chris from Prehistoric Facts. This is Prehistoric Facts Extra episode number 43. We're going to be doing something new. Starting off in 2021, we're actually going to be doing specimen pathology type of extra episodes. And so this is going to be the first one. And so this is specimen pathology number 1. And so we're going to be talking about a specific type of specimen that has a lot of pathology on it. And this specimen is Big Al, or Museum of the Rockies 693. So remember, MOR 693 is the specimen identification. Because see, that's what museums do. And Big Al is, of course, the nickname of this type of specimen. And so let's actually get a little bit more information about the specimen, shall we? So the discovery, and so in 1981, this is when the skeleton was actually discovered. So in 1981, a Swiss team of paleontologists, along with paleontologists from the Museum of the Rockies and even University of Wyoming, have found this specimen in Wyoming, and so it was actually found in the 150 million years ago in the late Jurassic period in the Morrison Formation of Wyoming. And so when we actually look at the specimen, this specimen was 95% complete. That is incredible. That is a high number for a dinosaur skeleton. And this specimen is a juvenile Allosaurus jamatsoni, but back then, it was not called Allosaurus jamatsoni because Allosaurus jamatsoni is recently described, so it was recently described in 2020. But Big Al was actually a Allosaurus fragilis for almost 20 years, or otherwise almost over 20 years. So over pretty close to 30 years. So it was almost 30 years. That it was an Allosaurus fragilis, so it would be that would have been 28 years. It was considered to be an Allosaurus fragilis, and like I said, it is 150 million years old in the late Jurassic period in the Morrison Formation. Big Al actually has 19 abnormal or injured bones, so 19 pathologies on its skeleton, and we're going to be talking about that. So here is the list of all the injuries that Big Al has actually got. And so this is a list, and so this is from a paper, and so you can put the papers in the description down below of this video, so you guys can check those papers out about Big Al. And so I'm actually going to be covering the probably the more famous injuries of Big Al, and so we're actually going to be talking about certain types here, and so I'll show you a picture of this here. And so this is a picture of a skeleton of Big Al, or otherwise, or the Museum of the Rockies 693. This is in the University of Wyoming Geological Museum, and so we're actually going to be looking at number 14. Some of these injuries right here on the rib cage. Here, so this is 4, 3, and 2. And then, of course, number 19, we're actually going to be looking at those types of injuries. And so, yeah, and you can see where all the arrows are pointing. Those are the pathologies or all the injuries that this animal has actually went through. So the first injury here we're going to be talking about is this finger bone. And so when we look at this finger bone right here of this outermost claw, we see it is very enlarged, and so this is a humongo injury. And Rebecca Hanna, a paleontologist that works in the Museum of the Rockies, she actually describes in this injury as probably by twisting force. So this was actually a bone that actually got in a really was bent in an awkward position, and it gave this really unusual enlargement of the bone. And so this bone would have been very painful to the animal. This injury would have been very painful. And a cross-section of this finger bone is actually shown that the inner part of the bone is very nicely tightened. So it's actually a very well sealed bone. But on the outer parts of the bone, so the outer part where you see all this abnormality, it is very loose. And so this means is that this bone was still healing before the animal's death. And so this was not the actual cause of death, but this is actually an injury that happened before death. And so this is actually a very painful injury for this animal. This animal probably wouldn't have been able to actually bend its finger properly for a while, and so this probably had some pretty significant consequences for this animal for this injury. So the next injury we're going to go into are the ribs. So these ribs here, you actually see here, they are very abnormal. You actually see this one right here. It's got this really abnormality right here. So this rib is broken, and you kind of see where the original the healthy part of the rib is actually going downward from the vertebrae all the way down, but you get meat halfway right here. You get almost over halfway, and you see that the bone is actually kind of jarred or otherwise not in place. And so you got all this like callus right here, this callus-like type of bony material that is actually kind of trying to keep that rib together. But then you actually get right over here, and you actually see this kind of injury right here of this rib. This was a very nasty rib injury. This was probably due to either all these ribs were a result of a fall, or otherwise maybe a really high amount of force that actually has hit the side of the animal and has caused these types of injuries. And you can see there's rehealing right here. So this animal survived these injuries right here in the rib cage. And so Big Al actually probably had a very hard time breathing a bit, but luckily this animal healed really quickly from these injuries. But we're actually going to into the most famous injury of the specimen, and here it goes, the toe. So here is the most famous injury of Big Al. This is actually the toe, and this is on the right foot. And so this is actually the toe that is kind of like in the middle. So when you actually look at the three toes of a bird, like when you see like a chicken walking, you kind of see like three toes on the ground, even though it's kind of dew claw and all that sorts of stuff. But this is actually the middle toe. And so this abnormality right here, this is actually considered to be an infection. So we actually see here is this bone was broken not too long before the animal's death. And so this is actually a very gruesome injury. So this probably had a very big effect on how this animal could hunt and probably how it could actually be able to move. Because I'm pretty sure with this type of injury, this animal was probably limping like constantly, probably could not able to put a lot of weight on that foot. And so this is actually a very devastating injury for a predatory dinosaur. So any injury in terms of like any of the toe bones or even like any of the leg bones, even part of the tail would actually be very, very problematic for any predatory dinosaur. So this is actually a very bad injury for Big Al. So this actually was very, very swollen. You can see how swollen this bone is, and so the skin of this toe would have been touching the other toes, and so this would have made it extra painful for this animal. And so this is probably the most nasty injury of Big Al. Big Al actually did not have a pretty good life. This was actually a tough life for an animal. And so this is the reason why predators actually have tougher lives than herbivores, because predators can actually have some pretty nasty injuries. I mean, if you look at lions will get injured by zebra, they'll get injured by Cape buffalo, they even get injured by hippos, even rhinos and elephants. They get injured by all those types of herbivores, and they risk their lives to actually try to get those types of animals. But mainly the zebra, antelope, Cape buffalo, and even hippo. Elephant is a little bit of a stretch, but they can get after an elephant. But yeah, so for Big Al, he was forced to scavenge a lot off of these injuries. And so Big Al is very famous in the BBC documentary Allosaurus Walking with Dinosaurs special, and this is the part of the media that is well known for everybody that actually has seen that knows Big Al or even has seen Big Al in exhibit in either the Museum of the Rockies or otherwise in the University of Wyoming's Geological Museum. This is actually a not too bad of a documentary type of feature, but right now it is very dated. It is dated information. It's good entertainment, but the thing is that it's dated, and it kind of does come off as being far-fetched on how the injuries of Big Al actually happened. So this is all guesswork on pretty much on what happened to Big Al. So a lot of those injuries could actually have happened to anything, could have happened to any point in the animal's life. So it really could have happened to any point in the animal's life. So Allosaurus Walking with Dinosaurs special, it's very entertaining. I recommend you do watch it. It is actually a fun piece of media, and you can actually enjoy it. But remember, just there is that type of special where you do go behind the scenes. You get to look at the scientific information about it, about making this documentary. But it is actually pretty interesting. But yeah, but I recommend looking at the papers. Look at the papers of these of Big Al. So, like I said, this is actually going to be a thing that's going to happen in extra episodes. So please let me know what other types of specimens that have pathologies, that includes dinosaurs, reptiles, mammals, or birds, that you want me to cover. And please put down the specimen ID or number in the comments, so that way I can actually check that out, and also I can actually look at the papers of those type of specimens. And this is actually going to happen every other month. So this is the first one. So the next specimen pathology episode would actually happen in March. So be sure to remember that. So the next pathology specimen episode would actually be in March. So the next episode will be on January 29th, 2021, and there'll be a Q&A episode. So if you got any questions about dinosaurs or any other prehistoric life, feel free to email me at dinochrist71@gmail.com. Or go to my Facebook page, Prehistoric Facts with Dino Chris. Like the page, you actually post your questions in the comments section. Please put them in the comments section. Do not put them in Messenger, because I do not read questions off of Messenger. That's only for private conversation, so please put those in the comments section. And for you YouTubers out there, feel free to like the videos, subscribe to the channel, and even stomp on that bell, so that way you can get notified about every video that actually does come out on my channel. And feel free to put your questions in the comments as well, and you guys get a shout out too. And, so your YouTube name would actually be given a shout out in a Q&A episode. So that'll happen next week. So feel free to do that, and make sure your questions keep your questions short to the point. And you can also follow me on Instagram at dino.chris.pf. I post pretty cool pictures on Instagram, and also if you like to follow me on Twitter, feel free to follow me on Twitter at CSGRALL. It's my Twitter page. I post pretty cool stuff on there. Also, take care of people around you. And also, for younger people out there, to make sure listening to parents, your teachers, and your guardians is the best motivation you can have a good education. It's very important to have good education. With good education, you get a good job in the future. And make sure you're wearing a mask, socially distancing, and also wash your hands, because we're still in the pandemic and we need to reduce the spread of this virus. So make sure you're doing all the necessary steps to actually reduce the spread of the virus. And also, feel free to check out Colossal Fossils. I'll put a link in the description down below. That's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time.